Now that Chris Simms is a full-time employee of NBC and doesn't have to run off to any other jobs when PFT Live is over, we keep him in the chair to talk more football. We talk about some of the things that we didn't get to talk about as much as we'd like to, or maybe some other topics that couldn't fit the 3 hours that we had on PFT Live. And Chris, I want to start with something that has just bubbled up over the last day or so, coming out of Cleveland. The idea that maybe the Browns are cooking up a trade, not for Antonio Brown, but for Odell Beckham Jr. I think both of us realize how big that could be. Would Beckham really want to play, though, in Cleveland? Nothing against Cleveland, but he doesn't seem like a Cleveland kind of guy.
No, I agree with you there. He does not seem like a Cleveland kind of guy. He kind of seems like he's a big city superstar type of guy, right? Whether that be in L.A. or New York, but obviously has not the biggest love affair with New York, and I don't know if that's about the city of New York or just the New York Giants in general, but you've said the quote many times when asked about, are you happy here in New York? And it was a yes or no question, and he said, I don't know, that's complicated. I mean, of course we're going to read into that because that's a very easy question to answer where you just go, yes or no, I'm not happy. So by saying that, I think that tells us that no, he's not happy. There's some issues there. I don't know what they are, but either way, man, even though there might not be a place he wants to live, gosh, the chance to go play in Cleveland with Baker Mayfield and his good buddy Jarvis Landry, the formula on the football field seems absolutely perfect for that scenario. But there's a lot that goes into that. What do you got to trade to get him? Do the Cleveland Browns want to deal with it? All of those things I think are fun and interesting things to talk about here as we go.
And keeping the focus on Odell Beckham Jr., to the extent that he is a guy who is motivated and driven to win, and you've heard that over and over, he's got a passion to win.
Yes.
He wants to win.
Yes.
When the jobs came available from a coaching perspective after the 2018 season, I said the Browns' job is the most attractive because they have Baker Mayfield and they are set up to win. So maybe from Beckham's standpoint, he doesn't care about New York or L.A. or anything else. He's going to be famous no matter where he is, and he's going to be the biggest fish, one of the biggest fishes in a big pond because you've got Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry and Myles Garrett. I mean, they would be putting together something extra special, and they would win. And it reminds me so much. First thing I thought of, Reggie White to the Packers in 1993. That kind of impact that elevates a franchise that desperately needs it. Now, the Browns are doing a nice job on their own of self-elevating themselves, but you throw OBJ on top of it, and man, all of a sudden, that is a special team with high expectations for 2019 and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, that becomes like you go, uh-oh, is this the Kansas City Chiefs type of offense? When you go, oh gosh, it's Jarvis Landry, it's Odell Beckham Jr., the tight end David Njoku is good. I mean, we saw what Nick Chubb can do at the running back position last year, and then, of course, Baker Mayfield is a star on the rise. It would be unbelievable. And, hey, to your point about Odell Beckham Jr. too. Hey, I've heard it and you've heard me say it a million times. Coaches, players, there is never any doubt about his passion or love for the football game. It is all about winning. And, we're hypercritical about it. But, a lot of his antics on the sidelines have been about frustrations of the team not playing well or him being wide open and not getting the ball, and he's got to feel like he's wasting his talent away a little right now in New York. And I don't want to knock Eli Manning, but Eli Manning, hey, come on. He's up there in age. We know that. Throwing the ball down the field has been a huge talking point with the New York Giants and the lack and inability to do that. And, of course, that's Odell Beckham Jr.'s strength. So that has to frustrate him. The big thing is, Mike, the trade stuff. I mean, what do you got to trade to get a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. in his prime? Does Cleveland want to dance or flirt with that? That's a team that is going in the right direction, but certainly has some holes I think we both agree that they need to fill to make themselves that playoff caliber team.
Our friend Tony Grossi of ESPN Cleveland suggested a first-round pick plus guard Kevin Zeitler, who otherwise reportedly is available, and the Giants obviously need help along the offensive line. If they're ready to move on from Odell Beckham Jr., they could pick up a first-round pick, maybe more, and maybe Kevin Zeitler, and move forward without OBJ. But I don't buy the idea that they're absolutely committed to keeping him.
Yep.
I think that they're as exasperated with him now as they were a year ago, and they don't know what the end game is for OBJ in New York, and maybe the game has ended for him there. And I like the fact also that this is, at a time when the Steelers are shopping Antonio Brown and refuse to trade him within the division, this is the ultimate middle finger from the Browns to the Steelers. Hey, you're going to trade away Antonio Brown out of the division. Fine, we're bringing Beckham into the division. Deal with it, Steelers. And that makes that rivalry even more impressive if that happens, Chris.
Oh, I mean, that would be amazing. I mean, yes. And again, I do not like that Odell Beckham Jr. gets put in the class of Antonio Brown as far as the off-the-field stuff. And I know you feel the same way, because I think Antonio Brown's actions have been way more egregious than anything Odell Beckham Jr. has done. But yeah, you want to talk about, oh yeah, you lost a polarizing star receiver. Oh, okay, well, we got one coming into town. That certainly would swing the balance of power, not only on the playing field, but for those fans who live in that part of the country, young kids who might not know who they're rooting for growing up, maybe live close to Pittsburgh or in between Pittsburgh and Cleveland, and they're, man, this Baker Mayfield caught my eye this year. And then you get a guy like Odell Beckham Jr., and all of a sudden they go, damn, I'm not a Steelers fan, I'm a Browns fan when I'm growing up. That's what the Browns are trying to do, and that's what that kind of trade could do to that region and that area and that sports fan.
Let me tell you, I got a niece who suffered through 1-31 and considered bailing on the Browns and decided to hang with the Browns, and she will be blowing up my phone the moment she hears that there's talk of Odell Beckham Jr. going to Cleveland. It's going to create even more excitement, and it makes the Browns real players in the AFC and in the NFL. We talked about Antonio Brown, and during the show we did a draft of the best coaches who could deal with Antonio Brown. Let's flip it around. And this isn't aimed at being mean-spirited or gratuitous, but which coaches in the NFL should just look at Antonio Brown and be candid with themselves and say, this isn't going to be my skill set to deal with him. My circumstances don't suggest that this is the right guy for my team. I am running in the opposite direction
Right.
with the prospect of coaching this guy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of, I mean, that's part of this Antonio Brown conversation, right? When we talk about trading him, it's not only just trading the player, but the right formula within the organization that you feel like can handle this type of strong personality and maybe be able to deal with him being late for a meeting on a Wednesday, 5-6 minutes late, whatever it may be. I think the first thing you have to do is you have to have a quarterback who's very secure in where he is and what he is in that organization. The second thing I would say is you need to have a coach that's experienced. I mean, the ones right away that come to my mind right off the bat, I mean, are the newbie coaches, right? I mean, hey, Matt LaFleur, oh gosh, you're already dealing with, can you handle and coach Aaron Rodgers? Now you throw Antonio Brown in the situation. That sounds like a disaster. Our guy Zach Taylor with the Cincinnati Bengals, he's still learning his way. He hasn't even formulated offensive game plans yet, let alone be a head coach, and then he deals with that. Or our man Cliff Kingsbury, same thing. And I think that's why we heard them make the statement, right, Mike, of we're out of this Antonio Brown trade. We want nothing to do with that. It's just a lot of pressure on a young coach who's trying to find his way to deal with a guy like that in this situation, to me, is a recipe for disaster.
The 49ers were the first team publicly linked to Antonio Brown, not because of anything the team said, but because of things players said. George Kittle on Twitter, flirting with Antonio Brown. Jerry Rice saying that Brown wants to play there. Terrell Owens told me that Antonio kept asking him questions about the Bay Area. Well, he may be in Oakland for a year, but he isn't going to be in San Francisco. Ultimately, and look, I know that you know Kyle, and I don't want you to have to divulge any secrets, but do you have a sense as to why they just weren't interested at all in Antonio Brown?
Well, I would imagine, and I don't know, and these are things that I don't talk about with Kyle because, you know, it's he doesn't want me blabbering them out on TV, just like this right here. So these are like conversations we don't even get into. But either way, I would think this, just knowing my friend, first of all, I think he can handle a personality like Antonio Brown. I want to make that very clear. But also, you know, you got to take in the rest of the context of the situation, right? I mean, he's 10-22 right now at this point. You know, he's got a quarterback who we just talked about where he's still kind of young and inexperienced and doesn't know his way yet. You know, is it he's still trying to make his mark on the 49er franchise? Does he really want to have to deal with Antonio Brown coming back to the huddle and, you know, mother effing guys and I want the ball and I was open and why didn't you throw the ball? So I would think that's why my buddy Kyle Shanahan stays away in this situation. He's got to put his best foot forward here in year 3. He knows they got to change, you know, the team, the look, the record, all of that. And this is dicey. And as we've talked about, Antonio Brown can scare coaches away.
Yeah, and I agree with you completely. Young coaches, guys who already have issues in the locker room that they're going to be dealing with, you do not want to throw Antonio Brown on top of that mix. And we spend so much time on this program talking about the guys at the top of a 53-man roster. There are guys at the bottom of the roster, guys on the practice squad that rarely get discussed, in part because we don't talk about them until they're contributing. Well, one way that they maybe can put themselves in a position to contribute eventually, getting reps in one of the leagues available to them, the AAF or the XFL, as of next year XFL, this year AAF. Bill Polian, the co-founder of the AAF, has suggested that the AAF and the NFL could get to a sharing arrangement where some players from the NFL teams, there's only 8 AAF teams, so it's not like it would take many players, but loan some players to the AAF and let those players develop there. I love the idea, Chris, in part because let's get some recognizable names.
Right.
And I'm not saying starters, but maybe second stringers, third stringers, get guys on there that, guys that were talked about in the draft, in the run-up to the draft, so we know who they are. Let's get those guys there. As it stands now, the first 90 guys for 32 NFL teams are off limits. Let's let some of those guys be on the AAF teams.
Yeah, so many things there. You're right. I mean, some of those low-level guys on NFL rosters were college stars that are close to these cities of the AAF team. So there will add some name recognition that way. But the biggest thing, too, is development of players at the bottom of the roster is a huge thing in the NFL right now. Between the current CBA contract and how little you can practice in the offseason and OTAs, how during the season you're limited in your full contact practice. Hey, it's hard to develop as a defensive tackle or a linebacker in the NFL when you're not allowed to hit and you don't have a guard pulling and crushing you at times and dealing with that physicality that, of course, comes about with the game, and you don't ever get to play in a game in those situations. So that's where I think it can be a great thing. Not only good for the AAF, but great for the NFL to develop some of these guys who just don't get enough reps as the season goes along.
And part of the danger here for the AAF and the NFL is that if you start relaxing the contractual restrictions that apply to NFL players, because if you're under contract with an NFL team, that's it. You can't play. You can't play for any other leagues.
Right.
And if they say it's okay only for the AAF but not the XFL, then you've got a problem. And people may say, well, how were they able to pull it off with the World League all those years ago? The World League was owned by the NFL. So this is where there is. And sometimes lawyers are too concerned about potential landmines that are out there. But if you say, yes, AAF, we will loan you our players, no XFL, we won't, that's when you get into a potential antitrust violation.
Yeah, I mean, exactly right. But, I think you and I have heard some of the rumors that it sounds like the AAF and the NFL, there could be something behind the scenes. There's interest there. I know we don't know that for sure, but that's certainly, circling around the rumorville of the NFL. So if that is the case, okay, that's really cool. I guess the next thing I would ask, Mike, is it's going to be interesting too, though, right? Okay, you play for, let's just say, the New York Giants. You're the 52nd guy on the roster. They want you to get reps with one of the teams. You're down there on the Alabama Birmingham team. You're playing good. Everything's going good. You get injured, right? How does the contract get paid out? Where do you get for your money now because you're going to miss the season time in the NFL because you got hurt in the AAF? You still going to make the money you were supposed to make from the NFL? Those are the things I wonder about.
And those are good points. Right. Those are issues that you would spot. You may have been a decent lawyer. You spot issues and you resolve them. And one issue that is here, what does happen? And you would have to have these guys protected because they are on loan. They're still basically co-employees of the AAF and the NFL. And really, the easiest way to do this is just have the NFL buy the AAF. And Tom Dundon, the guy who came in and saved the AAF, has told me in no uncertain terms he didn't buy it to sell it. So that's not happening anytime soon. But it's a lot easier. Some of these issues go away if it is part of the broader NFL structure. But if they're going to loan these guys to the AAF, Chris, and they get injured in the last game of the season or any game of the season and miss time of the next NFL season, their teams are still going to have to pay them.
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, that would only be fair and seem right. And, hey, I mean, we were at Indianapolis last week, right? We saw Tom Dundon walking around. I look at things like that, just context clues to go, okay, he's there in a city where all the NFL brass and big-time executives, there's a lot of owners there. Hey, is something coming about? I certainly thought that when I saw him at the restaurant one night. Okay, he's around here networking. Will there be more here in the future between the AAF and the NFL? It certainly seems that way.
Hey, where we were last Thursday night, there were plenty of movers and shakers,
Right.
and I didn't see Vince McMahon or Oliver Luck there.
Exactly.
And Jerry Jones wasn't wearing an XFL hat on his bus on Saturday. It was an
Very
AAF hat.
true. Very true. Valid point there. Touche to you, Mr. Florio. Touche.
All right, I'll let you go wear a hat for the next 3 days because you don't have to worry about keeping your hair all nice because you're not working until Monday.
Yeah.
So congratulations, your first week in the can. There's a new episode of Chris Simms Unbuttoned that is dropping on Friday, but it's already in the can. So he gets Friday off, you
Yeah, you
nice
keep grinding
guy.
away. I'll be sitting on the couch, might get a workout in. You just keep grinding, man. Don't worry about me.
Haven't taken a day off since January 1, 2004. Actually, December 31, 2003.
Oh,
You
my-
still don't believe that, do you?
No, I don't, especially after
It's
you
true.
slept through the first 15 minutes of the show last week.
I
It
still
just-
worked that day.
You did work. You did work.
I just showed up late for work. I still was present. All right, that's it. Congratulations again. We're glad to have you aboard. And everybody, check us out Friday on PFT Live. Big Cat will be in. Chris will be back on Monday. Have a great weekend.
See you, man.